There's one thing this city's taught me. You can put a price on anything. Secrets, reputations, a life. And trust? If you have to ask, you can't afford it. But then I suppose none of that matters when you're me. After all, when did I ever pay for anything?
With the next gen out, Thief was a game I was looking most forward to playing. Sadly, what I got was a good stealth game that got marred down by clunky mechanics, a bad story, bad characters, and a hard-to-navigate city amongst other problems. The story doesn't need you to have played any of the previous games to get into it. It's a reboot that doesn't really involve anything from the last games, which is odd. You're Garrett, a master thief who's on a mission with your protege Aaron to steal this crystal thing from Baron, I forget his name. Upon seeing the ritual take place, Garrett decides that it's time to leave, and Aaron disagrees with him. The two bicker, and this important item called the claw lands on a skylight. As Aaron climbs onto it, the skylight breaks, and Garrett flies into a wall. The game then picks up 1 year later with Garrett suffering from amnesia as he enters the city, which is now suffering from a disease known as the Gloom. He attempts to make it back to his hideout, and now the story actually begins. Now, the first thing that I'm going to say about Thief is that I liked the overall presentation. The graphics look great, the design of the city, the buildings, the architecture, that looked great as well. It also hits the ambience of the city really well, the dark, gloomy environments when you're traveling the city, whether it be voices in buildings that are discussing different things about ongoing parts of their lives, or guards talking, what have you. It hits this way out of the ballpark. It was really good. I thought that was one of the better parts of the game. The part that it falls short on is the fact that this is a real chore to navigate. The city is poorly designed for navigation. Lots of areas are blocked off. You can't climb most things that anyone could climb on in real life. You access different parts of the city through load zones, and there are tons of them. For a world that is supposed to be open, it's really closed off and it feels small in the grand scheme of things. You don't get the same feeling of exploration as you did with like Deadly Shadows. Trying to navigate this city will get you lost, and trying to get to any side mission is a big chore. This led me to not really play any of the side missions. The loading zones are proof that this is a next-gen game that is held back by the shortcomings of the previous gen. Windows that you have to mash X to open, or an alleyway with a wooden beam in the way. The city and even missions have a lot of these, and it gets real old real fast when you have to go through these, which can take away from the immersion entirely, and it's something the game really shouldn't have had. But with those problems aside, the main reason to enjoy the game is the stealth. Being able to steal things right under guards' noses, tons of collectibles to steal and find, and finding the sneakiest path to get around missions is probably the best part, and it is the most thief part of this game. I found myself trying to steal everything and trying to find the collectibles that showed up later in your hideout. Focus and upgrades were also really, really sweet. Being able to see what objects were interactable and what contained secrets, a painting with a switch behind it, or finding this wire that went to go disable a trap or something of, that kind of thing. That was a good addition. The swoop mechanic is something Garrett should have had a long time ago. The upgrades, while they're kind of hit and miss, some are useless, and then things like the wire cutters and the screwdriver, and the painting cutter knife, all of those serve a good purpose. They get sweet loot, and they help you find places with even more sweet loot. What I didn't enjoy was the hypersensitive guards, the birds and the dogs, and the combat. The first major issue with the guards is that they can be hypersensitive, or they can just have a stupid AI. Many times I was found out by a suspicious guard who was alerted to my presence, and I was crouched, moving slowly away from him in the dark, at least 10 feet away. And this happened to me many times when I went through the tutorial mission again with the difficulty modifier on that you can't be seen, otherwise the mission restarts. And their AI pathing at times can just be infuriating. They will either walk into walls, or they will decide to turn around and walk into you at the most inopportune time. And this causes a fight that you didn't want to get into in the first place. Another thing that I didn't like that was slapped on just for the sake of artificial difficulty are the birds and the dogs. Many times you'll be doing fine with stealth, only to have a dog nearby start barking or move suddenly and a bird gets really mad at you, and this alerts the hyper-aware guards. You can knock them out with gas arrows and that kind of thing, but this only serves to really waste your arrows and leaves you short-handed in times where you really need them. And the last part is combat. Thief. I understand. Garrett's a wimp. He was in the last games. I know he can't take hits for crap, and I understand that 1 versus 1 is doable, but when 2 or more guards are around you and you can't win the fight, and running away only works part of the time, and they deal all this damage when they hit you, it becomes absurd. Trying to run from them is an exercise in getting up high or run out of stamina with the guards always 2 feet behind you to stab you in the ass. Many times I've ran for long periods and tried to hide in a closet or what have you, only to have the guards come in halfway through the animation of me getting in, or they just knew I was there. You can't hide in the shadows because if they get within 10 feet of you, you're running from them again. They made combat a death sentence just for the hell of it. And I'm fine with hard combat. I've played in the Souls games. But this isn't a fight you can win with skill. This is a fight where you can only die. I don't know who thought this was a good idea, but it wasn't. The sad thing is that with the hypersensitive guards, the birds and the dogs, and this artificial combat difficulty, it ruins the modifiers that you can turn on to make it harder for you. And there's a lot of them to turn on. Things like no focus, getting caught fails the mission, Iron Man difficulty where you can't save, turning off the light gem, turning off the HUD, all this stuff. It basically makes it a lot more difficult and a test in commitment to wanting to beat the game with all these modifiers on because of these just artificial things added into the game. There's no reason to have the birds or dogs that get alerted to your presence because that can fail the mission. You can't knock them out if you turn on one of the modifiers, otherwise that fails the mission. You can't knock guards out or anything, so that fails the mission. And sometimes there's guards that won't move or get in the way to the objective that you're trying to get to. So there's a lot of things here that just mess with the modifiers and makes it so that turning all of them on are unwinnable. And I don't believe for a second that they tested any of that at all to see if it was possible to go through the game with all these modifiers. If it is, then, and somebody does that, then congrats, I will give you a hug. Because I tried to do it and I couldn't. I spent like an hour on the tutorial mission getting caught over and over by one guard. So that's why I consider it absurd. And like most games, it suffers from bugs and glitches. Not so much in the actual gameplay department and exploration and stuff. There may be a couple of things, the occasional texture pop in or whatever. But I never had any freezes or game-breaking glitches. No, the glitches and bugs come from the audio. The game suffers from horrible audio bugs and mixing issues. From people being too quiet to the music being overpowering. It just overpowers everything. It was hard to hear cutscenes at times. They would start off fine, and then the music would just overpower everything, or the people would overpower Garrett. The music, though, is good. I like the music, but the voice acting, just shoot me now. It borders on passable, just plain bad. Garrett's a new voice, being the best one of all of them. And it doesn't even come close to his original voice. It doesn't come close to Stephen Russell. and at times Garrett does come off as flat, which is a damn shame. The game took me roughly 10 hours to complete, and I did little to no side quests, and I mostly just stole everything. The story really wasn't worth it in the end for me. I found it a big disappointment, considering that I really felt it blew its big climax just way too early in the game. And the part that I'm talking about is the asylum level. And I need to talk about this part, because not only is it the best level in the game, arguably the best part for me in this whole game. It also introduced one of the most shit your pants enemies I've ever seen in a while. And this level, it reeks of ambience. It's got the creaks and the noises from the city. It's got, just like the city, except creepier. It's got banging metal. It's got all these noises, and it has these moments where you feel like something's watching you, or you have to look around and see if something's there. It gives you real goosebumps. Even instances where I would go through a revolving door in the hallway, and down the hallway the other door was turning like something had just entered or exited from the hallway into the room there. And I had things like ghostly apparitions and notes of patients and people who worked there from long ago detailing events and like little minor things. Even had moments where doors were being slammed open and I was scared, thinking that something was actively looking for me there. And then it hit me. This level is almost exactly like the cradle from Deadly Shadows. Instead of a homeless or an orphanage, it's an insane asylum. And I feel that whoever really made this level was playing the cradle a lot when they were in the middle of designing this game. But this level got better once I went down into the lower parts of the asylum and came across the Forsaken, which I can't really describe it, so I'll show you through gameplay footage of the Let's Play that I'm doing. Take a look. Yeah, this was definitely the best part of the game, and sadly the rest of it didn't come close, in my opinion. In the end, I ended up not caring for any of these characters at all. They had no personality, they didn't leave a lasting impression on me, unlike characters from previous games. Hell, the guards in Deadly Shadows were more memorable because they had the drunk guard, they could be funny, they talked, they were interesting to listen to. The game's lack of factions also was a terrible idea. There's no Hammer Bros, there's no Pagans, and it makes me angry it does. The characters were either forgettable, or in Aaron's case, they pissed me off. I refuse to believe that Garrett trained this snot-nosed, arrogant, stupid woman like this. She's annoying. Her voice is probably one of the worst in the game. And she's the exact embodiment of everything that Garrett isn't and would never want to be. Her reasoning and constant bitching makes her one very annoying character. And I don't care what other games come out later this year, she gets my vote for the worst character of this year in any video game. Thief, in the end, is really a mixed bag. While the ambience, the stealth, thieving part of the game, those all hold strong to the franchise, the story, and basically the rest of the game falls short. The levels, with supposedly many ways to get through it, are fun at first, and then you realize that they all look designed like those are really the only paths to go. They don't really feel like multiple choices that you're given. Not like the original games, like in Deadly Shadows, where many of the ways didn't feel like they all went the same direction towards, you know, from point A to point B. They all felt like, you know, point A to all the other points and then to your objective. You know, you could accidentally go out back outside from an entry point and all this other stuff. I didn't feel that those were designed at all. It has a level of artificial difficulty that almost messes with the stealth, and its story is the weakest in the series. And the characters are borderline forgettable or aggravatingly annoying. And as it stands, the game is just average. It doesn't do anything special, it doesn't do anything unique, and to me is probably worth a rental or a purchase when it gets a lot cheaper. It is not worth the $60 full price tag. It's worth one playthrough to see the story, and probably 2 or 3 more if you're into torturing yourself.
Not without this, you're not.